CineSmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is CineSmack! And the winner is...
Hello, CineSmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 88 of CineSmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Mr. Kyle Fine.
Hey guys, you see me working out? Doesn't it look weird? I'm old and I don't know how to work out. I'm Charlton Heston.
Second, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gavraf.
No one was sure the atom bomb would work until they dropped it. It worked.
Third, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Tomothy Haggis.
Hasta la vista, baby.
That's the wrong movie, Tom.
Oh, that's next month.
That's next month.
Well, you talked about those two for like half an hour before we started.
Unfortunately,
so over these movies, you're already on the next one.
I've already moved on.
We're going to talk about two different movies.
Guys, just skip this episode. Next month will be way better.
Way better.
unfortunately, Tosh is not with us tonight. He's home on Mr. Mom duty. So 220.
He's literally
221,
watching
whatever
Mr.
it
Mom.
takes. Yeah. All right.
We're doing Terminator 2 versus Mr. Mom next month.
Oh,
Spoiler alert. Oh, you say spoiler alert before you say this. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You got those
Batman
backwards.
versus Terminator? That had to be a comic at some point in the 90s.
Oh yeah, there was. It was.
Had to have been.
It was. Because wasn't it Predator like Terminator versus
Fucking
Predator?
Batman was in a comic book with everyone in the 90s.
Yep. All right. Let's stay on track here. All right. Let's poke the monkey, find out what we're talking about this month. And it's not Terminator 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, geologists and seismologists, welcome to the main event. Tonight, prepare to be rocked to the core and see how things shake out. Which disaster flick will be left standing and which one will be turned to rubble. In the first corner from 1974, written by George Fox and Mario Puzo, directed by Mark Robson, starring Charlton Heston, Ava Gardner, and George Kennedy. Earthquake! In the second corner from 2015, written by Carlton Cuse and Andre Fabrizio, directed by Brad Payton, starring Dwayne Johnson, Carla Gugino, and Paul Giamatti. San Andreas!
We're just as disappointed as you are.
Can we just vote?
This is a 15-minute. Let's do 4 rounds of voting, and then see you next week.
It'll be our highest rated podcast.
Oh, shit. Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, since I'm a panelist, I can actually my vote matters this week or this month.
Hey.
So, hey, let's go ahead and move on to our first round so I can vote, which is writing.
Writing. Okay, these movies technically had it. San Andreas is a trope of a trope of a trope. You might as well send the poster to the theater with the title left blank, and you can just fill it in as it changes. If you'd have told me that movie was 2012 and John Cusack was in it, I'd have believed you. It's, oh my God, it's like such the prototypical shut your brain off Hollywood action disaster movie that we get now in the 2000s. And according to some research, Earthquake is very much what like you got in the 1970s when you went to see a disaster spectacle movie, which was all the rage at the time. That's a whole era of filmmaking I know nothing about, but it's really interesting to research it. Okay, back to the writing. So Earthquake, I think, suffers from being about 6 different movies shoehorned into one movie. There are conservatively 60 main characters that have 120 to 140 different stories going on at some point. We actually spend quite a bit of time with a drunk Walter Matthau, who is
which was great
during some, but his comic relief time is so bad. We'll get to that. I guess we'll get to that later. But man, Earthquake is one of the most strangely written movies I can recall, because it is written like a giant overarching human drama that an earthquake just happens to take place in. And it also has one of the weirdest human antagonists in the army.
Oh, yeah.
Private, like, what an odd character. And the story behind who that guy really is, and like in real life, is even more fascinating. He's a guy named You're right. Yeah, his name was Marjo something, but he was raised from the age of 4 as a pastor by his evangelical family, and he basically traveled around doing revival shows and like scamming people out of money. And then in the 70s, actually right before Earthquake, he did a documentary that nobody knew was going to be a documentary, where he basically went out on the road, scammed a bunch of people, and then told the camera and the filmmakers how he was doing it, and then renounced everything, and then went on to like have a brief acting career.
Really?
But holy shit! So the first
were you guys talking about that documentary before?
No,
Because
I think it's
I've heard
called
of that
Marjo.
story.
I think it's named after him.
Huh. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Earthquake has way, way, way too many things going on, and they are happening between people who are written as characters you cannot believe. The opening few scenes of the movie are so insane. Charlton Heston, who looks every bit of 65, but is probably like 58 in this movie. I mean, he looks haggard, but starts the movie by showing us he has no idea how exercise equipment works. And then we immediately cut to a woman, like, in the terms, I use this term, I've been watching a lot of wrestling lately. She pulls one of the greatest heel maneuvers ever by doing the old fake suicide. Which is so quickly brushed under the rug. It's bizarre. It's a non-factor in the rest of the movie. And that happens a lot in Earthquake. Shit happens, and you're like, that's fucking crazy. And then they never talk about it again. And then something happens, and you go, oh, that's weird. And then they spend an hour doing something with that shit. Like, there's legitimately a whole angle that's just a stuntman in this movie.
Yep.
And he only has a very brief amount of time where he does stunts and saves people. The rest of the time, he's talking about how he wants to be a stuntman. It's weird. It doesn't belong in this movie.
What ended up happening to him? Did he
Who knows?
just?
I saw some water.
Yeah, he looked at that water coming, and then we didn't see anything happen to him. And I was like, well, did he? I mean, wouldn't a stuntman try to like drive his motorcycle really fast to get away from the water? Like, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool to watch him trying to get away from this water? Well, and then he just looks at the water, and then it cuts to something else, and we never know what happens.
When they introduce him, I'm just like, oh, he's going to use his stunt skills at some point to save somebody.
Oh yeah,
and he never does.
Nope.
He really never does.
No,
he absolutely should.
He lifts Charlton Heston's girlfriend out of the
the LA River
gorge.
The LA
gorge that was very slowly flooding.
But he does it using none of his stunt expertise.
Yeah, no, nothing at all.
It could have been anybody.
Also, most of his story is about trying to borrow $10 off a cop who arrested him once. What the fuck is happening? These storylines are bizarre and don't have any place in this movie. They belong in another movie. There's a whole story and plot and characters written around an earthquake in this movie. And San Andreas, the earthquake is like everything that's happening.
Yep.
And everything else around it is paid very minimal attention.
I felt like one of the things I wrote down in my notes is that it was nearly an hour worth of setup of this story in Earthquake. It was almost halfway through the movie before anything earthquake related happened. That they're just setting up these characters, showing them kind of going through their daily lives and that kind of thing, and like nothing is happening. And I'm like, why do we need this much setup? You know, it's like we need to know. I mean, I think it's important if we're going to care about what happens to these characters during and after the earthquake. We need a little bit of setup, but like half the movie. It was just the pacing was really just extremely slow. It just really did not get into, and that's where I have to give San Andreas some credit. Is that it may be kind of a trope, and it may take kind of a well-established structure, but it throws you right into action and character building immediately. There's immediately something happening, and you learn about the main character right away, who he is, what he does, what his character is like, his what kind of person he is, and those kinds of things. And so I have to give San Andreas a lot of credit for that. They get us into the movie and we get going, and earthquake shit starts happening almost right away, and you're like, whoa, they're not wasting any time here. We're going into the earthquake. And so, going into a disaster movie like that, that's kind of what I'm looking for a little bit. Maybe I'm turning my brain off and I'm not looking for the world's best written, most, the best developed characters. I'm looking for something that's like, okay, throw me in the action and let's go. And I have to give San Andreas credit for that it does that. Whereas, Earthquake took a long time to get any kind of action going.
I think one of the biggest problems all disasters movies have this, and watching both of these, I'm just like, how do you make a disaster movie and not have to do this, personal struggle bullshit that every disaster movie is like, we're going to talk about this personal struggle, and then Mother Nature is going to be like, your petty problems don't mean shit against what I can do. And it's just, every disaster movie has this. And it's just, I don't know. Is there a way to do a disaster movie without having to get into all the personal shit? Or is that just something you have to deal with in order to, because you don't connect with any of these people. There's never, this like, and they try, but I don't, I never connected with The Rock. Like I have, like I have with all his other movies. I don't know. And that's always been a struggle because I absolutely love disaster movies. I grew up on Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno.
That's where you and I agree a lot on.
But that's just like every time it's like, oh my God, why do we have to just get bogged through this personal BS crap? It's this personal drama stuff. And it's just, I don't know, but maybe they have to have it in there, and otherwise it's just buildings falling down and you don't really care if people get squashed or not. So,
yeah, then it's truly just simply about the spectacle, right? And like we don't really care what happens,
right
at that point.
How do you balance that? I don't know.
I guess if you start with a family and they don't get separated and you watch them survive, you could do that without other antagonists.
Okay, so that's perfect. So if you've ever seen, oh my God, I can't remember, The Impossible, about the tsunami, the Christmas Eve tsunami several years ago with Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
No.
Great disaster movie. Absolutely great. And that's what it is. It's just centered around this family of 4 and how they get split up. And of course, it's a true story, so that helps too. But and that's the other thing. There are natural disasters. You don't need to have Paul Giamatti beating his chest and being like, "This will be the biggest one ever," and it's like, they're pretty big now, Paul. I mean, you're not. I feel like they're competing with what's on the news, and they don't have to. I think there's real personal stories out there. I mean, they're making 2 movies about the Thai soccer team that they rescued yesterday, and it's like, you don't need to make shit up to tell a compelling story. And in fact, if people go in knowing it's a true story, that's how they make the personal connection, because they know that it really happened.
Right.
So, there, I solved it. I thank you, Hollywood.
There you go.
I just want to point out Tom Holland, our Spider-Man right now, was in The Impossible. So we had Obi-Wan Kenobi and Spider-Man.
The crossover we all want.
Well, I think, honestly, being someone that grew up with these films, the 70s disaster movies, okay, all disaster movies, but mainly these 70s disaster movies really feel soap opera-y. Is that a word? So they're very soap-ish.
Opera-ish?
Yeah, opera-ish, whatever. I think it was just that feel for that time. You got to remember, we are watching, it came out in 74. We have seen so many other things since then. But I really do feel like, from what I've read, Mario Puzo turned in a script and the producers hired another writer to rewrite that script because the budget blew up with Puzo's script, right? Because he was following all these people and they all had their own arcs throughout the film. So you can tell where they're cutting stuff, just like we never find out what happens with the Daredevil, all of a sudden, Charlton Heston and Ava Gardner are just gone. And
yeah, exactly. I was going to say too, they just kind of disappear, and you're like, and maybe that could be really compelling though, because that's what a natural disaster might actually be like.
That's true. There's no dramatic.
You're just there living your normal life, 1 second, and the next second
and
you're
it's
just
gone.
And but the way they did it, it wasn't very. It didn't come across as very compelling. It didn't come across as very, frightening or sad like it could have.
You weren't like, oh no, no,
what happened? Where'd they go?
You weren't like, no, not him. And it was just all of a sudden just there and then not. But yeah, maybe it does add some realism. But, we were talking, 1974 was huge for disaster films. You had Earthquake, which was the second highest grossing film of the year. Towering Inferno, which was the highest grossing film of the year. And then you also had Airport in 1975. So this was kind of a... how Hollywood goes through these times where they all have to make certain movies, and then they get tired of them, they move on to the next, and then there's a cycle to everything. And yeah, I just watching it now. I haven't seen it for a long time. Maybe I watched it 10, 15 years back, but I do remember watching it as a kid, along with the Poseidon Adventure and along with Towering Inferno. And I always enjoyed this movie. It always kind of scared me a little bit as a kid, but now watching it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I could see where I was coming from, but the storylines are just a mess. And San Andreas, I have to agree with Gabe. They just put you in the seat and you're going. They try to do some character development. They give you enough and you're going, and you're watching these people experience what's going on. And I have something I want to bring up in the acting or directing category, so I won't say that right now. But I honestly, watching these two films, I had the same feelings when we watched way back when we watched Armageddon versus Deep Impact.
Deep Impact.
Like, to me, it was just like, okay, you got your big budget blockbuster and then your more story driven area, but Earthquake was less the story. They were trying to build on it, and when Kyle brought up the fact that Charlton Heston can't exercise, I totally agree with that. He was using those cables like, what's going on?
Hard.
What is going on?
You are a former college football player.
Yeah.
You know how to use that fucking machine.
Right.
What is wrong with you? I was like, does he not want to be in this movie? Is he just fucking around? Because I was like, is he trying to piss off the director?
I don't know.
But like you said, there were a lot of things that were unanswered in it, and it's a shame. I kind of want to see Mario Puzo's draft. I would like to read it and see where he was going with it, and see, if there is some conclusions to all these storylines that we were seeing. But
you know what the big thing is these days is reboots.
Oh yeah,
and remakes. So maybe we get Mario Puzo's draft and actually make it.
Remake Earthquake.
Yeah, remake Earthquake, but as it was originally intended.
Right. We get Schwarzenegger to play Heston's part.
Right. He can use some exercise equipment. For sure.
I was actually thinking about this, and this is a total sidebar. This is a total tangent. For as big as a star as Stallone and Schwarzenegger were, they were never in. Oh no, wait, nope. I take that back. Schwarzenegger was never in a disaster film.
What was Stallone in?
Stallone was in that Daylight.
Daybreak.
Yeah. Was that an earthquake thing too? It
was
a
tunnel
collapse or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was thinking, I'm like, well, shit. Chuck Heston, one of the biggest movie stars at the time, and he was in a disaster film, and I started thinking, Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure. The Rock has a couple under his belt, and it's just like, these big actors from the 80s, not a lot of them weren't doing disaster films at the time. It was all action films. So, yeah, that's total sidebar, total tangent. Do you guys have anything else to say about writing?
While we're on the subject of reboots, I would love to see, I think there's like a really good opportunity for them to reboot the Twister movie and the Twister franchise and do that again and turn that into just a whole, extreme weather like franchise, where it's, tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and stuff. And I think there's a lot of globetrotting in there, and I think that would be fantastic. Right. And I love Twister, but
Twister's so good.
It's so good. I mean, they get a lot of things wrong about tornadoes, but
it's Hollywood.
Yeah. When they're throwing throwing shaved ice at Bill Paxton. I'm like, that's not what hail looks like, guys.
Actually,
they've never been to a state that has hail.
No, well,
California.
Funny story. The person throwing that ice was actually someone that Amanda knows. So I can't remember if it was a professor at AIB or if it was someone she worked with. But yeah, he was sitting there throwing some of that ice at Bill Paxton. Wow. All right. Anyway, let's go. That's actually a good idea. We'll talk more about a disaster film that I watched that's more of a heist movie. And I think you guys can put that together. But anyway, let's go ahead and vote. Kyle.
Much like my masturbation habits in my teenage years, I'm going for quantity over quality, and Earthquake has a shit ton of writing in it. It's like 6 movies, so I'm voting for Earthquake.
Wow. Huh.
Tom.
For different reasons, I'm also going with Earthquake only because it was one of the first disaster movies, and I'm just disappointed that San Andreas didn't really learn how to break out of that funk, the personal drama crap funk.
Yeah.
So, which is also the name of my new band we're playing this
personal
weekend.
Drama funk. I like that.
Personal drama crap funk.
Sounds good.
Gabe.
I'm going to go with San Andreas, mostly because it gets to the point quicker. I felt like the writing was more concise.
There's no foreplay. Gabe doesn't like foreplay.
Yeah, just get it done.
Yeah, there you go.
Get it on.
Gabe's a spit in your hand. Let's get to it kind of.
Don't waste my time.
All right. Well, I'm actually going to vote for San Andreas as well. Even though, Earthquake's one of the granddaddies. I enjoyed San Andreas a little bit more on this viewing, so that's why I'm going for.
Yeah, it rambles on and on like your granddaddy does.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I'm not doing trivia since I'm voting. I'm going to save some of that for the overall category. So let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Oh, there's so many wonderful performances. I can't wait to talk about them. Look, The Rock has his pluses, and he has what he does in his movies, and he seems to enjoy it. And I guess if I don't want to. Okay, are we all right?
I'm good. I'm good.
So Mike's choking. Anyway, the thing that I guess the thing I can say about The Rock is that he never tries to think that his movies are anything more than they are. He's very self-deprecating. He knows that his movies are just there to basically sell popcorn, and he seems very okay with that. And it's one of those reasons why I still kind of seek out his fun disaster movies, because I think they are entertaining and they're not horrible. They're spectacle movies, and that's what they're there for.
Well, and but he looks like he's just having so much fun. Like he looks like he's having a blast making.
The first shot of him in San Andreas is just like really, the sun coming in and bouncing off of his glasses. Yeah. It's too much. And I think he's great. He's very funny. I'm going to say an unpopular opinion here. I don't think Charlton Heston's a very good actor.
I tend to agree.
I don't either.
Terrible. I've been trying to think of a movie that he's good in. What is he good in? Like maybe Touch of Evil, but
he's good in Planet. You don't think he's good in Planet of the Apes for what it was?
He just grits his teeth and grumbles and just like
everything
pisses him off.
So I love how Tom said,
"Whatever, get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape." Whatever. Look,
I love how Tom said, "Look, a contrary opinion," and then we all agreed Charlton Heston sucks. It's pretty funny.
How did he become such a big star? Why was he such a?
Was
he that handsome at the time?
He was just a good-looking guy, I guess.
With his work in Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur, he had the following of a very large swath of Americans that trusted his movie choices, and that's fine. I mean, that's what he wants to do. I don't think it christens him, pun intended, as a good actor. So, on the other hand, I think one of the best actors in Earthquake was George Kennedy. I think he's great in just about everything he does.
I really like George Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. He was awesome.
He's fantastic, and even like the real silly drama stuff. He carries it better than some of the other actors in the movie. So, who
George Kennedy reminds me of, and this is only going to be for the four of us.
Can I guess? I know.
Okay, who?
Ed Post.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
He does a little bit.
I thought who was the girl? Genevieve Bujold, who plays Denise, was very good in it. She was very natural, which I was very surprised. I find anybody acting natural. So I know some of you guys want to talk about Paul Giamatti, so I'll pass the mic.
Oh my God, Paul Giamatti! You gave me my word. I love Paul Giamatti, like just about as much as I love Denzel Washington. And I would watch.
Sorry, Gabe.
I would watch Paul Giamatti eat cereal for 2 hours. I don't care. I love that guy.
Yeah.
The only reason
he
Tom
was
knows
definitely
this,
a good addition to that.
Yeah, man, I really do dig him. I also wanted to bring up to Victoria Principal. She didn't really have too much in Earthquake, but man, she moved on to bigger and better things. That's for sure. Like she was on Dallas for God knows how many years. I wouldn't
have recognized her if I didn't know that's who that was. I wouldn't have known who that was.
We talked about
who was she in Earthquake?
She was Rosa. She was the one that was wearing the tight T-shirt. The sister.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's a good-looking lady.
Yeah. Walter Matthau. I dig Walter Matthau. I love him, and
that part was terrible.
It was terrible.
He's in his own movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just kind of brought in like cameo wise, and he wanted to be, as he says, his real name. He wanted to be credited with his real name, which was Matthew Shansky Ansky. I don't know how to say it. It's Matusc ChaNSKAYASKY.
Yeah, say that 10 times
But
fast.
it of course, that's not his real name, but he told everyone that it was. There were a lot of, we kind of discussed Lauren Green. Lauren Green was, he brought in the Bonanza people, and of course he went on to do Battlestar Galactica. But I have to agree with you. Charlton Heston, like, not really that good.
It's a very strangely cast movie.
It is.
Your main action star looks 65. His wife looks 65. His wife's dad looks 68. It's weird. Richard
And his
Roundtree,
girlfriend looks 16.
no
Yes.
shit.
Yes.
And I know that, and I looked, she wasn't. They were actually only, like, it was like 32 and 51, which is okay by the, the creep factor equation. But
That's a hard 19 years though, separating her from Charlton Heston.
yeah,
That's a lifetime.
it was Heston's hardest 19.
Well, also, I want to point out that Airport 1975 came out the same year, it came out the same year and starred Charlton Heston and George Kennedy in it.
Really?
Yeah,
So strange.
it is.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
George Kennedy is probably my favorite part of this whole movie. I'm used to my George Kennedy from the Naked Gun movies.
Mm-hmm.
So to see him as like this handsome young cop, and there was a part where they're driving around in the cop car and they're shooting it from the front with the lights,
Yeah.
and I'm like, Heather goes, "It's just like Naked Gun." I was like, "Holy shit, it is!"
I
But
like to
he's
think
one of the
that
best things going.
I like to think that since he survived, he's the one that starts Police Squad.
Because
Because it takes
some
place
brain
in LA.
damage from
Right,
an earthquake,
right.
and it's like he's had a mental break, and that's why he's just not all there.
I am
That's
I am like missing a bunch of people I want to talk about in Earthquake, but Ava
There's
Gardner,
a ton.
like
There's an
Ava
absolute ton of
Gardner
actors.
was so like she was still all right looking for her age at the time, but you're talking about one of the screen gems of early Hollywood. But did you mention that Lauren Green was only? Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? We already
I
mentioned
think
like 7
before
years.
the show, wasn't
Okay.
it? Yeah, he's 8 years her senior, which means he got to banging pretty quick to pop out Ava Gardner. And I mean, they look the same age.
They do.
It's crazy. That's what strikes me so funny is this movie is like these two people you chose to be like your leading couple are not the right demographic for this movie. It's hard to watch Charlton Heston try to run around and do actiony things when he looks like he's in such bad shape.
Right.
It's just awkward.
Now, I love Carla Gugino and Alexandra Daddario in San Andreas. I think they're not
sorry.
they're not your typical damsels in distress.
Yeah,
Like,
they definitely cast them as
they get in
stronger
distress, but they're
characters than-
strong characters. They're not like screaming and just laying on the ground. They're actually doing things. But,
I love that they were able to find some oil of Olay face wipes halfway through an earthquake and kind of keep themselves presentable. They looked at the end of the movie. They looked pretty well put together for people that almost died 17 times.
They did.
Was that after they drank all their Pepsi products?
Yes.
Did nobody else notice the giant Diet Pepsi you kept throwing in our face? And Dasani water or whatever?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Aquafina.
Yeah.
But oh man, I love Dwayne Johnson. I'll always call him The Rock. Like Kyle brought up wrestling. I loved him as a wrestler, and even though at his time I wasn't watching a lot of it, he's just so charismatic, and he just goes full into stuff and looks like he's having the time of his life. And he doesn't care. He's just going to go for it. And I really like Dwayne Johnson. He seems like a stand-up guy too. Everything you read and everything that you see about him. So that's all I got.
He's
say
fun
about
to watch. I
acting.
just think when he has to sit there and look worried or concerned or think about something deep, he kind of looks like a robot who's frozen. Like the wheels are just spinning.
Right.
And he's like, I got to wait 3 seconds.
Oh, I know what I was going to
smile
bring
and
up.
say something.
I know what I was going to bring up was I was talking with Tom about this on a little bit ago. I don't know if it's The Rock who chooses this or if it's the director, because the same director also directed Rampage. But The Rock also flies a helicopter in Rampage. Like he has a thing about helicopters. I don't know if it's The Rock or if it's the director that has a thing about helicopters. And it's like that whole Kevin Smith story about when he was writing the first Superman movie about giant spiders. You know, does this director...
There's a producer on these films,
right?
He's a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, that just needs to have helicopters in it.
Just fucking gets it in every script.
So sorry,
which
go ahead.
is really too bad, because if they'd really like the helicopters, we're not going to get the 70s disaster trifecta with Poseidon Adventure, because I'm really not sure how you work a helicopter into that movie. But
it could be on the deck and they're trying to get away.
Yeah. It's really hard to work that in underwater. But, you know, I'm sure they could have shoehorned it in somehow.
Didn't they remake the Poseidon Adventure?
Yeah.
They
already did, yeah.
Rock just blew through, you know, Earthquake and Towering Inferno, so there's only one more, so. Well, Airport.
Oh, yeah.
Although I'm looking at Rock's IMDb. He's busy for the next 14 years, it looks like.
No,
it's true. It's true.
He's got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So, Gabe, I heard you squee a little bit when I brought up Carla Gugino and Alexandra Daddario.
Yeah.
I just like saying her last name, Daddario.
Daddario. Yeah. give me a minute, Lee. I'll be right back.
Uh-oh.
No. Yeah, they're. Let's just say they're both very attractive women.
Yeah.
And you know the strange thing about Earthquake to me is that they've got so many what I would call kind of A-listers in it, but the acting is just terrible overall. The acting is really just not that good. It's very melodramatic or very flat, or it's just. And I'm like, how can they take all these this many great actors and have it fall so flat? But with San Andreas, I thought the acting was pretty solid. You know, for what it was, you know, I thought they did a pretty decent job throughout. I didn't really feel like anybody's performances were really too terrible. And of course, you know, it's fun to see Paul Giamatti. When you even just hear his voice, you're like, oh, I'm gonna like this. This is gonna be good. Just his delivery and that kind of thing. Even in something as, you know, campy and unbelievable as this, you know, there was a part where it gets a little over the top melodramatic sometimes, like the part where he's on TV and then he's like, you know, what does he say, like something about God bless.
Oh yeah, the
San
man,
Francisco or whatever. What
the
does he
man
say?
of science who at the end has to say like, "And God bless everyone in science."
right, and that, you know, that line and that delivery was a little kind of okay, whatever, a little over the top. But generally, it's just fun to watch him. And The Rock, he does look like he's having fun. You know, he's just out there, he knows it's not an Oscar performance and that kind of thing, but he gives it what he's got, and he's always fun to watch. So I think the performances are pretty. You know, it's the opposite. It's like it's where in San Andreas you don't expect the performances to be that great, but they're pretty good. But in Earthquake you're like, whoa, what happened to these people? These are famous actors. Many of them maybe in the waning years of their careers, possibly, or you know, but still, it's like, wow, the acting should be much better.
But I want to give the people in Earthquake a little bit of leeway, just because, I mean, what they were doing in 1974 had never really been done before on this scale in terms of like the mat and, you know, using their imagination. I mean, the people that are in San Andreas are used to working green screen, and the guys in Earthquake are just kind of really, really outside of their element. And this is something that really hadn't been done before at this point. So I'm not voting for Earthquake, Charlton Heston, but, you know, I got to give them a little bit of credit for what they're trying to do.
Sure.
Derailed you there, didn't I?
Me? No, I was done.
You were done. right.
Yeah.
I wanna invite Paul Giamatti over to my house, and I'm gonna set fire to my own kitchen because I just want him to tell me something urgently. You know, as my house burns down over my shoulder, I just want him to just like yelling at me.
Mr.
Your
Giamatti,
kitchen's on fire!
Mr. Giamatti, I will pay you $20,000 and buy your airline tickets. I just need you to come over so I can set my kitchen on fire. What? All right, you're in. Just real quick, I was going through 1970s disaster flicks. The Rock's got Towering Inferno with, what is it called? Skyscraper?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's kind of a mix of Towering Inferno and Die Hard. So he could do an airport. We could do the Hindenburg, Poseidon Adventure.
Hindenburg! Helicopters! No, wait, that won't work.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh my God! Well, he could actually go for another asteroid film because there's meteor. Now this is one that I totally forgot about. Have you guys ever heard of the Big Bus?
The big bus?
It's essentially this double-decker bus. It's huge and it's atomic powered.
What?
Yes. And something goes wrong. And I'm sorry, I can't talk anymore about it. But yeah, it's called the Big Bus.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like they were like, okay, what about a bus? We can't stop it. Oh, and there's also one Tidal Wave 1973. Right. Oh my God. All right. I got to stop going through these. These are awful. Absolutely awful. All right. Let's put it to a vote. Tom.
Hold on. Fun fact about the Hindenburg disaster. Most people survived it.
They did. There were only a few
really?
that died. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
62 out of 90 survived.
do you think he was just reading the cue card wrong? Do you think you meant it more like, oh, the humanity? Like,
Yeah.
Yay, they got out.
They got their era's Paul Giamatti to read it. It sounded so bad.
Okay, so in the remake, we do the Hindenburg. Paul Giamatti is the reporter. You actually hear him. Oh, the humanity, right? Is that what we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he's uncovered something like they're cutting back costs and they're using cheap Chinese methane or whatever, and he knows it's going to go up. So he's like rushing to expose. Russian. He's trying to expose them.
All right,
And,
I like where this is
chased by assassins.
I'll tell you what.
That'd be
Once
great.
we're done recording, we'll call Hollywood. I have an
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have
All right.
Hollywood on speed dial.
Yes. All right.
That's what it says. It just says
yeah,
Hollywood.
It's the old Hollywood
Hollywood?
video on 14th Street.
Yes. Yeah. They keep saying
Are
Jimmy
you
Jones. I
voting,
don't
or-
get it. Yeah, Tom.
Sorry, Charlton Heston. I'm voting for San Andreas. Dwayne The Rock wins this round.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, San Andreas for me too.
I'm going with San Andreas. Kyle.
I feel like I also should go for quantity over quality because there's a shitload of acting in Earthquake. Like everybody's acting. Yeah, I'm gonna go for Earthquake. There's like 400 characters in it. I'm going for quantity.
Oh, this is great. All right, let's move on to our third round, which is, I don't even know anymore, directing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. What to say here? Yeah, I think. Well, we were talking about the acting and how there were a whole bunch of A-listers in Earthquake, but they somehow fall flat. And who do we blame for that? Do we blame the actors for that? We could. Maybe it was them. Maybe they were just cashing in. Maybe they didn't try very hard. Maybe, like with what Tom said, maybe it was something new for them. They weren't used to this, and so they didn't really know how to deal with it. But you could also maybe put that on directing a little bit. They didn't really have a lot of direction as to how these characters are going to react in these situations. And I just feel like, it's possibly the director's responsibility to kind of point them in the right direction. And then we talked about writing too with Earthquake, and I said, it takes almost a full hour. I mean, we get those little things where there's like little tremors, and then there's the thing where the trench the trench fills in, the trench collapses and kills that other, professor, that doctor. So there's little things that are happening, but it takes almost a full hour before any real action happens. And is that the writer's fault, or is that the director's fault? Should the director have seen that and said, okay, well, we need to make some changes here in the editing room to increase the pace of this and make it more exciting. So I feel like there are a number of places where in Earthquake you could blame the director for its faults, and that includes, like I said, the acting and the writing. Whereas with San Andreas, I think it was pretty competently directed. I don't know much about that director. Is it Brad Payton? Is that his name? I don't know. I don't know that I've seen a lot of his stuff.
You may have.
Sorry, I'm
my
looking.
volume
I'm
might
looking
be
right now.
Really far up.
Yeah, no, I don't really know much of his other stuff, but I have to say that I felt like it was pretty competently directed. Again, the pacing was really good. I felt like they kept it moving. There wasn't really a slow moment. They throw you right into the action, which I think is a good thing. They throw you right into character development. I think that the shot choices were pretty good. The camera work was decent. So I felt like the directing for San Andreas, for what it was really pretty competent. It was a well put together film. Whereas I felt like Earthquake was the opposite. It's just like, wow, this is clunky. This is slow, and this is really not well put together. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think Earthquake it was a really big, grand idea, and I just think it grew bigger than they were capable of doing at the time. I mean, they had a lot of really great ideas, and some of the execution is there, but really, like 70% of the movie is, I can see what you guys were trying to do here, but when a dead guy falls out of the elevator, usually he doesn't move. So, I feel like there's just a lot of corner cutting is what I would call it in Earthquake, where they wanted to do something and it didn't, it just didn't pan out. I even hit Miles doing the loop-de-loop. I mean, they use the same take for both of them. He falls off on both of them. But
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched it 8 times looking for the frame where I'm like, yeah, he falls, and it's the exact same take as the first time where he crashed. So
it's just slightly zoomed in, isn't it? So it doesn't quite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like a close up of the ground, and that was like the ricketiest ass stunt. Like you didn't need an earthquake to knock that over. A stiff breeze would have put that thing down. And it was all made out of wood, and there was a fire component. That was like, okay, this ain't gonna go well.
I know, it's terrible.
So
That was a disaster movie in itself.
Yeah. So I feel like Earthquake I just feel like it was a grand idea, and it was just too big. And I look at Mark Robson's filmography, and he did some war movies and stuff, but I don't think he did anything really quite on this scale. So it just seemed like it was out of the league of everybody there. So I just feel it was just too much movie for them to handle.
Yeah, I was looking at his filmography. This was his second to last film. He passed away in 1978. And then I was reading his bio. He actually studied political science and economics at University of California. And then he also attended the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. So he's a pretty smart guy. And somehow it just said that he ended up as a part-time assistant set dresser in Hollywood. Was it in Hollywood? Yeah,
that sounds like a sweet gig.
Yeah. But he started making film in 1943. I'm going to go real quick through their filmographies just for you guys. Seventh Victim, The Ghost Ship, Youth Runs Wild, Isle of the Dead, Bedlam, Champion, Roughshod, Home of the Brave. Roughshed. Edge of Doom, Bright Victory, I Want You, Return to Paradise, Hell Below Zero, Poofed, The Bridges at Toko Ri, which I know I've seen that movie. Trial, The Prize of Gold, The Harder They Fall, The Little Hut, Peyton Place, The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, From the Terrace, 9 Hours to Rama, The Prize, Von Ryan's Express. I've seen that. Lost Command, Valley of the Dolls, Daddy's Gone Hunting, Happy Birthday Wanda June, Limbo, Earthquake, and Avalanche Express. So I know a lot of them are war movies and boxing movies, like Champion and The Harder They Fall. So then if you go to Brad Payton, he did a short called Beyond the Fields, Ted, Full, all short films. Evelyn, the Cutest Evil Dead Girl, A Tale of Bad Luck, all shorts. What It's Like Being Alone TV series. Now this surprises me because I know what a big fan of this film that Gabe is, but Cats and Dogs: A Revenge of Kitty Galore.
I've got that on Criterion. It's actually quite good. The Laserdisc. Yeah.
Wow.
Journey to the Mysterious Island, which is another Dwayne Johnson movie. Republic of Doyle, San Andreas, Incarnate, Frontier, Rampage, another Dwayne Johnson film, and announced San Andreas 2 and
Of course.
Just Cause. So
Just Cause, is that going to be based off of the video game of the same name?
I don't know. Let me see. I'll click
I
on
wonder.
it. See if it-
He made a movie just called The Voyage to the Mysterious Island.
It says it's going to take its story cues from Just Cause 3.
Yeah.
The game.
Oh, so yeah, video game. Right. Okay. It's like
Journey-
an open world crazy destruction video game.
Yeah,
So-
Journey to the Mysterious Island, because wasn't there Journey to the Center of the Earth, and then Journey 2 was
Oh,
like its
okay,
sequel.
okay. I was like, man, that's a really
Yeah.
bland name for a movie. Holy shit.
And I totally bypassed the person that wrote that helped write San Andreas with it, which is Carlton Hughes, who has a lot of hits.
It's
under
Tom
his
Cruise's cousin.
No, Hughes. C-U.
Oh, right.
C-U-S.
Yeah, you drop the R. That's how you know you're cousins.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I didn't realize that.
But he did a series that I absolutely loved back in the 2000s, and that was Nash Bridges.
Oh, my God.
I loved Nash Bridges. Oh my goodness. But anyway,
We got an idea for a show.
Yeah, I was gonna-
Remember when Don Johnson
Yeah,
was
he was
famous?
I was gonna say he was part of the Lost series.
yes, yeah,
as well.
he was part of Lost. He did. Let's see. Hold on, I'll go through it since we're on the topic. Briscoe County Jr. He also wrote Rampage and the new Jack Ryan Amazon show.
Is that with
Jim from The Office.
yeah? What's his name?
Don Krasinski.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
John Krasinski.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
need-
he's
I
in
need to
that,
watch
right?
it. Yeah. He
interesting.
did some, let's see, Bates Motel. The Witches of Eastwick. Oh, the TV movie. Never mind on that. But yeah, he's got a few hits under his belt. But Brad Payton, I kind of like that, the way he can direct spectacle without you getting lost in it, like another director that I like that has become a caricature of himself, and we won't get into that. So anyway,
Bad Boys was good.
oh, Bad Boys, The Rock, Armageddon.
I said bad. I gave you Bad Boys. Let's not go too far.
All right, have we discussed enough of
Oh God,
directing?
yes. Make it stop.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Gabe.
Yeah, I definitely have to go with San Andreas in this category.
Yep, I'm going with San Andreas. Kyle.
So, this whole quantity over quality thing, like, he technically had to direct more actors in Earthquake than they did in San Andreas.
And he's he had directed more movies.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Brad Pitt.
Give me Earthquake.
All right, Tom.
I kind of want to give it to Earthquake because that scene with Charlton Heston crawling through the tunnel, that light bulb, that extension cord was like, must have been 300-400 feet long.
I
And
know,
I'm not
that's
sure
what I
they made
was
those back
thinking.
then.
Yeah.
So, boy, that was a ballsy move. But it was also.
It would have been, yeah. It would have been funny if he got like to the end of the cord and then the light, like just before he got there, the light goes out. Shit.
Such a
No
stupid
longer
choice.
extension cord.
Flashlight would have fixed that. Fucking
Hardware
flashlight.
store is destroyed.
Right. And wasn't the power out? There was a giant earthquake. What the?
Yeah. Maybe it was on a generator. It could have been.
I'm hating earthquake more and more by the minute. So we'll go with San Andreas. San Andreas it is.
All right. Fourth and final round, which is over.
Tom sometimes talks about in this category
Oh, go ahead.
rewatchability. What is going on?
You said short and sweet. I thought you were going to make another masturbation line, but that's cool. Go ahead.
Oh.
Well, short applies. There's not much sweet about it. Anyways, Tom in this category often talks about rewatchability, and I think Earthquake may be one of the least rewatchable movies I've ever seen. I wouldn't watch it on a fucking dare. It is 2 hours and 2 minutes long. It feels conservatively 50 minutes longer than that. It could have been a half hour long. It's your granddad's Earthquake film. And I imagine it's best watched while you're doing something else. So you can just tune in while shit is falling down. Victoria Principal's got her nipples out, or George Kennedy's punching a hippie. Other than that, just move on. San Andreas, you can probably sit and watch with a little bit of a buzz on and be like, these girls are hot. That building's falling over. That shit's crazy. Paul Giamatti's weird. You could still enjoy that. But Earthquake was interminable. Holy shit.
Wow.
All right.
I mean,
Tell us
it
how you
made
really
me
feel.
made like a top 20 worst movies I've ever seen because it was so long and almost nothing went anywhere. Just weird.
All right. Alexandra Daddario is 14 years younger than Dwayne Johnson, who plays her father,
Gabe.
and 15 years younger than Carla Gugino, who plays her mother. If you guys could
15
hear
years
me,
younger than The Rock?
14 years younger than The Rock.
14.
And
So
15
at
years
least a
younger than-
believable age,
Right.
not Lauren Green
not
and his
7.
62-year-old daughter.
Yes. In a bizarre coincidence, the location, this is on the first day of Earthquake, was rocked by an earthquake. And then in an even more bizarre coincidence, an earthquake also struck the location where the last day of shooting occurred.
Well, God did his best.
Yeah. God told you this movie is long and boring, and you're going to be punished for it.
In Earthquake, shots of the Black Tower, a 12-story office building on the movie lot, swaying, was accomplished by shooting its reflection in a mirror and then warping the mirror back and forth. The sequence was shot as a test prior to production and wound up in the final film as an in-joke at Universal Studios' expense. At the time, the Black Tower housed Universal's top executives. All right, and then there's the whole sense around stuff. Let's see.
That may have made Earthquake more fun to watch.
That may have. So here's one. When the movie played at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood in '74, it was shown in Sense-Around with heavy bass speakers set on the floor around the theater. Very soon after the preview performances, a giant net had to be rigged above the patrons because the fear of the ornate ceiling decorations might break loose and fall on the audience below to the low bass rumble.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there were reports of people getting bloody noses from Sense-Around. People,
and then the military took note of that.
Yeah,
Had nothing to do with the cocaine. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it was at Sense-Around, I swear.
They settled on the Sense-Around gimmick, but at one point it was seriously entertained that chunks of polystyrene should be dropped on unsuspecting viewers during the quake itself.
Holy shit, that would have been great.
Let's see.
Has anybody been to Universal Studios before?
Yes.
Yep.
Have you been on the Earthquake ride?
Yes,
have you,
it's no longer there. But
so I was so crazy when I read that was loosely based on this movie.
yes.
It's so funny.
Let's see here. Yeah, nosebleeds occurring amongst audience members because of the Sense-Around system. Now, we usually talk about music in this, and I think we can all agree John Williams is a composing god for film.
Yeah.
He composed the score to this to Earthquake, The Towering Inferno, concurrently, having previously scored the Poseidon Adventure. He briefly earned the nickname King of the Disaster Scores.
Wow. And you know what? I felt like when I saw his name come on the screen at the beginning, I was like, oh, really? And I have to say I was a little disappointed. It was definitely not his best work. But you could hear him developing. Mm-hmm. You know, you could hear like his style kind of developing in there. But it certainly wasn't a noticeable score. It didn't have like a memorable theme. I mean, how many John Williams themes can you hum? You know, how many of them do you know by heart?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. And he's got a lot of like distinct, memorable themes. But this didn't have it yet.
Oh,
that wasn't quite there yet.
Tom, we discussed this about them using the same take with the motorcycle. The crash that motorcycle daredevil Miles Quaid has coming out of the loop on the stunt track was not scripted, but an actual spill taken by stuntman Bud Eakins. Eakins was uninjured, and the crash was worked into the final cut.
Wow.
I'm sure that
it
was
doesn't look like a stunt.
No,
it looks like a real fuck up.
Right.
I'm sure that was like day 2 of filming, and they're just like, let's just keep going, guys. Can't get any worse than this.
Let's see. Paul Newman, Steve McQueen were approached to star, but had already committed to appear in The Towering Inferno. Earthquake 2 was actually planned, and a first draft script was written by George Fox, who wrote the script for this movie, but it never made it into development. The sequel follows several of the surviving characters of the movie: George Kennedy, Victoria Principal, Richard Roundtree, and Gabriel Dell.
Richard Roundtree. Earthquake 2 has Richard Roundtree in it?
Yeah. Who was the stunt guy.
Yeah, so that implies that he actually survived somehow.
Yes.
But we don't know that in any way.
Well, we didn't
or it's taking part. I assume it's like, I don't know. I mean, do we know anything about the story? Was it did it take place later on, or maybe it was the same earthquake and different.
This is supposed to be about the aftermath, where they settle in San Francisco. The multi-layered plot centers around a group of scientists trying to predict future earthquakes on the West Coast. A corrupt builder constructing a high-rise apartments and unstable land. The original characters. Oh, and there's an earthquake. Yeah.
So that's what I was waiting for.
Earthquakes aren't like lightning; they can strike twice.
Yeah, they can.
That's what I was waiting for from Ian Graffold's characters. Like, we're going to find out all these things he says about building these strong buildings. It's going to be bullshit. Like, it's all full of polystyrene. He's using like cheap Chinese labor or whatever. But it's a pretty strong building.
It is.
And I think he gets a rough treatment in this movie. That man's in shock. He watched someone get murdered right in front of him, and he wanders off like he lost his mind. And like everybody's like, he's an asshole. He left her. I'm like, he fucking just watched a man get murdered. And he just wanders off like he's crazy. And then, of course, the movie has to go, look, he really is a dick. Watch him push people to their death.
And did he die? I didn't think about him.
Yeah, he gets crushed by a shipping container.
Yeah.
Oh.
But they have to show him, like, push a guy out in the middle of the street and watch that guy get killed because he's like this big selfish douche.
Right.
It's weird.
That way you feel good when his building falls down at the end.
But not if it kills our main actors.
Shouldn't have cheaped out on labor.
Let's see. The cast in San Andreas did most of their own stunts. Brad Payton wanted audience to see their faces. Riddick's headquarters building in San Francisco, where Blake, Ben, and Ollie meet, is the Bank of America building at 555 California Street. It was the same building, albeit with special effects, used in the disaster classic The Towering Inferno. There's also another one from one of my favorite films. The apartment used in the film Bullet is actually seen in the film. Oh, shoot. Where is it? I had that queued up, too.
Well, a couple of things I'd like to talk about
go ahead.
is the sound work, especially in San Andreas. I felt like the sound was really well done.
Yes.
And it's not something that it's not necessarily intended to draw your attention, but I just kept on thinking that the sound and the sound mixing were really well done in my opinion. And it did seem like they maybe tried to leverage a little bit of the bass, because sometimes like it was almost distorted. The bass was so strong it was almost distorted. And I'm sure they were trying to leverage that for the earthquake scenes and that kind of thing. And then the visual effects too, which I think we should probably talk about.
Yeah.
And I think Tom has some stuff he'd like to talk about for earthquake, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I mean the visual effects couldn't be more night and day from each other, because in general, not always, but many of the visual effects in San Andreas are pretty good. I wondered about how accurately they portrayed the cities of LA and San Francisco as they were getting destroyed. I mean, is this okay? They're showing an actual building that people would know,
Right.
An actual location that they would know that's getting destroyed and falling apart. And I would think that would take a lot of work, and that would take a lot of meticulous care to do that.
Oh man.
And go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, yeah, I imagine they probably had, 3D maps of both cities, and they just worked from there with them. I mean, they were super detailed, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the visual effects on some of the buildings crumbling and that kind of stuff are really pretty fantastic. You see all this random debris coming out of these buildings as they're falling down, and I thought they did a great job with the visual effects. Because a lot of times that stuff can be pretty, it can look pretty campy, as evidenced by earthquake.
Let's not forget that one take when the earthquake starts in LA, when she's on top of that building. It's one single take.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like and it's awesome. I
when
love that.
Kylie Minogue gets sucked out the building?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of where that starts. So like right when she's on the phone and it starts there, and then where does it end?
It ends.
Which jumps for the helicopter, I thought.
It's got to end.
No, it's before she gets to the it ends when she
wakes up.
Yeah, because
she falls down.
Yeah, she falls on the concrete, and the concrete floors start pancaking on each other.
Yeah, and she goes down several floors, because then I think it cuts, and then she wakes up and she looks up and realizes, hey, how did I get down here?
There's a dip to black when the dust comes through, but it keeps going. I mean, obviously there's a cut there, but it's not
right.
The camera just like stays on her for a second, and they just keep going until
I couldn't
until
remember
he shows
cut
up.
away to something else.
I really like that entire sequence, the entire downtown sequence, just the buildings, rock coming in with the helicopter. I thought that was totally enjoyable. I loved it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good shot choices, a lot of good, visual effects, good camera movement.
Yep.
Whether it's real or not, for the camera movement, that kind of thing. It is well put together in that respect. Technically speaking, it's a well-made film.
They do a lot of interesting
visual effects and
things.
sound are great.
They do a lot of interesting things too, like where you see the ground rolling, power lines snapping, all those sparks, the water getting sucked out for the tsunami. Lots of different aspects of what would be this mega disaster. Earthquake was like the same kind of shots of little miniature buildings getting washed away over and over again.
Yeah.
And then what looked like really dangerous stunts.
Yes.
Like with big things dropping down on people.
Yeah,
there was
some guy got swept away by water and slammed into that pillar. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. There was one scene where these brick pillars fall down, but they fall all as one piece.
Yeah.
And you're like, they look light. They don't look very heavy. They're kind of bouncing around off of people and stuff. I'm like, that doesn't look very, very convincing.
All right.
You're waiting for the scene dresser to come out and like break it into individual pieces.
Yeah. I do think it would be kind of fun. Some of the miniature stuff was actually not bad.
Yes.
I was like, I can tell that's a miniature, but that's pretty good. And that part might be kind of fun to do. Build those little miniatures and then destroy them. That might actually be kind of a fun thing to do.
I was surprised. I was surprised there wasn't anybody on Earthquake that worked on Superman, because I felt like Superman, I was watching, I'm like, oh man, the guys from Superman must be involved in this, because there was like Superman did it better 3 years later. But that wasn't the case. It was actually a whole different group of guys. But there's a lot of that miniature work in the first Superman movie.
All right,
That was like the most there was like nothing. There's no content at all in what I just said.
All right,
So
Tom.
there are the guys in this movie that weren't in this other movie. What?
Let's talk about the elevator scene.
The elevator scene.
Yeah, and
Where he goes in the elevator and then.
So do you want to talk? Do you want to talk the trivia, or do you want me to tell you what I know about it?
no, just go ahead. You were wanting to discuss
The
it.
elevator where it drops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So the blood splatter, the cartoon Wile E. Coyote blood splatter on the screen. Yeah, it's. So I got to tell you, so up until that point, I was just kind of like, okay, all right. And it had me going, because I was living in this is a disaster movie from the 1970s. And I have to give, a willing suspension of disbelief to get through this. And then that flipping blood splatter on the screen. And I went, nope. And I'm like, I'm completely pulled out of this. And suddenly everything from then on got worse. I'm seeing everything after that point. Charlton Heston's acting is sucking more than usual. The mats, like, people are disappearing behind mats when they fall, and it's it was just awful. And nobody knows why they did it. There's two theories to it. One's with ratings, and the other is because they tried the elevator scene 3 times over 3 different days, and on the last day when they tried it, like with a hard impact, stunt people got fairly injured quite a bit, and so they needed an end shot for it. So nobody knows exactly why Mark Robson went with the animated blood on it. Now he's dead, so we can't ask him. So, but it's I don't know. It's just such an odd choice,
That it almost felt like something the editor put in just as a placeholder.
Yeah.
Right.
And forgot to take out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I know, Kyle, you're talking about repeatability. If I was basing it purely on repeatability, that scene, just the elevator dropping that 20 seconds with the blood splatter, I know for a fact I will watch that 50 more times in my life.
I want to just show that scene to people, because I bet the reaction is the same we had here. Because we sat here and go, what the fuck was that? And just rewind it, watch it again. What the fuck was that? Like, over and over again.
I grabbed my wife and she's like, I'm late for work. I'm like, I don't care. 20 seconds. You need to see this. And I dragged her in front of the TV, and those were her exact words. She was like, what the fuck was that?
So bizarre.
I go, apparently, Daffy Duck made it into the elevator too, and he didn't make it out.
We kind of have our own modern equivalent of that, though. There's a lot of digital blood splatter these days.
Right.
There is.
Which in some ways can almost be as jarring when you see it, because you're like, okay, that's, unless it's done the right way, unless you're in such a like fantastical world that it doesn't really matter that looks realistic or not. One of the most prominent examples I can think of is 300. There's a lot of digital blood splatter in that, but you kind of get over it. You're kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of not supposed to be realistic. It's not supposed to be grounded in reality in any way. I can live with this. But I think one of the things that bothers me the most about it is that those digital blood splatters don't transfer to the actual actors. So, they go through and they're like, slicing and chopping and, and there's blood everywhere. And then when they're done, they don't have anything on them. You don't see that blood splatter actually go on to any of the actors or anything. And that to me is what kind of takes me out of it. It's like, oh, that's not very believable. So we kind of have a modern, maybe a little bit more convincing, but still disconcerting modern version of that.
Well, there's one difference, though. And I've used this argument to defend 300 because it's more of a...
It's like he's telling a story. It's like a myth.
Right. So it's more mythological, like, as he's telling the story. So for me, I definitely forgive it in that case, because I I can't
I kind
forgive
of enjoy 300.
Daffy Duck blood.
Yeah. It's certainly not as bad as Earthquake. That's for sure.
All right. I believe we have exhausted both of these films.
Yay!
All right. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote. I'm the first one to vote, and I'm going with rewatchability, which is San Andreas. Kyle.
Yeah, I was going to go with rewatchability, but Earthquake's longer. There's more stuff in it. There's more people in it. There's more things in it. So I'm going to go for that quantity. Give me Earthquake.
All right. Tom.
Just a second. I'm dragging my copy of Earthquake to the trash. Emptying trash. It's gone. San Andreas.
All right. Gabe.
Well, I'm going to go with the whole disaster theme. I think this is going to be a landslide, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go with San Andreas.
All right. Okay. Well, this is actually, I think, the third time I've watched San Andreas for the show. I really do like it. I mean, what can I say? I love disaster films, except some of the Roland Emmerich ones are getting pretty bad. What do you say, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's starting to become a caricature of himself. So let's go ahead and move on to your recommendations for this month. And we'll start with Kyle.
Oh, no, don't start with me. Shit.
Okay, we'll start with Tom.
Okay, cool.
So I want to recommend another Dwayne Johnson movie. So you guys, everybody should check it out. It's a movie where Dwayne Johnson is trying to help his family from a perilous situation, and a group of bad guys, and he is just overcomes all odds to successfully save his family and show the bad guys who's boss, because they underestimate him. Everyone underestimates Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and if you ever met him in real life, you would underestimate him too, I imagine. And so it's amazing movie. The script is so it's really uneven. I haven't seen it yet, but everybody should see Skyscraper. Comes out this weekend. I don't think it's possible to have any spoilers for Skyscraper because it's pretty much the Dwayne Johnson movie. And actually, the Metacritic on it's 52 right now, I think. So, and that's pretty good for Dwayne.
That's
Dwayne, I always multiply by another 50%. So that's 75. He's approaching Last Jedi territory with that. So,
all right, let's move on back to Kyle.
I don't want to go second either.
Okay, Gabe.
He's still looking. Okay, I'm actually going to recommend a Charlton Heston film.
Oh.
I'm going to recommend Soylent Green. If you've never seen Soylent Green, it's kind of a classic sci-fi film. It may not be classic because it's good, but it's an interesting film, and it has an interesting take on how the world might be in the future and how we treat, women, and how we supply our food. It's actually kind of an interesting film. That again, the acting isn't that great. I don't think Charlton Heston is really all that great of an actor. I don't know. He just must have had some kind of charisma or something that people enjoyed to go watch on screen. But it does have one of the most famous ending lines of all time, and I'll bet all of you guys know what it is. Surely you know what it is. You know what it is, don't you, Mike?
Yes, I do, and don't call me Shirley.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll leave it at that.
Of people.
It's
people. Delicious people.
Well, there's some interesting stuff too with euthanasia and that kind of stuff. There's some interesting.
I love that band
stuff. Yeah, there's some interesting
a really good
stuff
album by Megadeth.
Get in my belly.
So if you've never seen Soylent Green, give it a shot.
All right, I've actually seen it.
I've never seen Soylent Green.
Yeah, you need to watch it. All right, Kyle, are you ready?
Oh yeah, sure. Thanks for that Soylent Green reference. And saying "Get in My Belly." I'll recommend the first Austin Powers movie. Wait, did that one have Fat Bastard in it? That wasn't until the second one, right?
Yeah.
Watch the first one. The first one's good. It's got Vern Troyer in it. Rest in pieces.
Oh, all right. I guess it's my turn. I want to bring up one thing real quick. Do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube. Type in 10 Things I Hate About Commandments. And it is one of my favorite videos of all time. I love it. It has Chuck Heston in it. My selection for this month is from 1951. And we're talking about miniature work. I love the miniature work in this film. It stars Richard Durr, Barbara Rush, and Peter Hansen, directed by Rudolf Mott. It's called When Worlds Collide. Essentially, it's about a planet that we did not know about that collides with Earth, and about humanity trying to decide who gets saved because they only have one rocket. And as a kid, this movie kind of scarred me. Like it's pretty heavy stuff, but I love the miniature work done in this film. So check it out, When Worlds Collide. It's a classic. I'm trying to do my Chuck Heston. All right. And it's failing poorly. Let's go ahead and poke the monkey and find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is San Andreas!
Well, yeah. Duh. Who other than me voted for Earthquake? Come on, someone fess up.
Tom did.
Hey,
Or
Tom got
writing.
one of those.
Yeah,
That's
for
nice.
writing. Yeah.
Gave him some credit. So
Yep. Yeah.
Holy God.
Well, and it was hard because when we were discussing this, it's like, oh, I really want San Andreas to go up against something, but I don't want it to be one of the Roland Emmerich films because, like it's always worldwide disasters with them. It's not, a state, let's say, like San Andreas. So it's like, well, let's do Earthquake. Just remembered it from childhood. And you could almost consider it a remake. No, probably not.
It draws a lot of. There are some things it definitely picks up from it.
Little homages here and there. All right.
Sure.
homages.
Homage. Where can people find you and maybe let you smell what they're cooking, Kyle?
I will be sitting right here rewinding the blood splatter scene, showing it to everyone who wanders past my house. So they can all say, what the fuck?
What we need to do is we need to get that just on repeat as a GIF on our page.
We need a smack track for Earthquake, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's write that
Yeah,
down.
that might be
We'll have
fun.
to do
That might be fun. Yeah. But then we'd all have to watch it again.
That's all right.
Oh,
We'd all
yep.
be together.
Idea rescinded. Idea rescinded.
Oh, my God.
Nope.
Take it back.
It's written down. Tom.
If we do it, I will try to keep track of the many branching storylines. That'll be great.
All right. Tom.
Facebook and Vimeo. I'm trying to get on Instagram, but they won't let me turn my video sideways. I usually say something funny right here, but in honor of the writing of these two movies, I'm not going to say anything entertaining. I'm just going to go on and on about the personal shit in my life. And then when something bad happens, you'll be like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad, was it? Your house is crumbled, but, at least you got that divorce thing taken care of. So
Watching these movies wasn't that bad, was it?
no. See, it could have been so much worse. It could have been so much worse.
Gabe.
You can check me out on Facebook or check out our 48-hour films on onegenomeshort.com.
All right. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. You can check out the Southsider Studios page on YouTube. Check out all of our videos and our films. We would appreciate it if you could leave us, CineSmack, a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search CineSmack. For August, we join the resistance as Terminator 2 takes on aliens to see who will scream, "Game over, man!" told you guys it was awful.
I thought you were going to rewrite that.
I
I
thought
had
it
the whole
was.
episode to
You
rewrite.
didn't have time.
I didn't have time. We're too
man.
busy talking about Chuck Heston for Tom.
Give me
Kyle.
10 more drafts. 10 more
Yeah.
drafts of that.
There goes the repeatability of this episode.
Yep, for Tom, Kyle, Gabe, and myself. Thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Would you please tell me how I can see this as anything but a total disaster?
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.